Now it's time to bring in my good friend and co-host, Jeff Small, along with another good friend, Nathan Cox, co-founder of Retirement Income Solutions, a retirement income store located right outside of Nashville, Tennessee. Nathan's also the co-host of the Retirement Income Solutions radio show. So Nathan, thanks for being back with us today.
Hey, thanks, Dave. Appreciate you having me.
So you look good there. You got your background, even though people can't see on the radio. You've got your radio microphone that you use there. You're looking all professional today. We love it. So speaking of professional, I know one of the things that you have to do every single day of your life is help our viewers, help our listeners plan for the long-term effects of inflation. So what do you tell them?
Well, in our practice here, what we've noticed is there doesn't seem to be enough education on long-term effects of inflation in general. I think people have been a little spoiled recently with historically low inflation rates. So I really believe that people don't put enough thought and effort into planning. Of course, we've always got clients who are the engineering types or engineering type minds who come in with spreadsheets and inflation calculations and things of that nature, right? But overall, in general, I just don't think there's enough education out there on that subject. I know you do a good job on your show and try to help educate people, and we try to do the same.
Well, inflation is one of those mystery things. Since before 2000, Nathan, everybody was using the S&P 500 to index to inflation today. And so why don't you tell us some of the ideas you utilize to make sure that our clients can generate enough income, and if they're lucky enough, get a raise every year with some type of inflationary percentage. So what are some of the mechanisms you use today in your practice to do that?
Well, in general, I mean, the idea of investing for income instead of relying on growth and capital appreciation to develop that income, I call it organically, to develop that income organically that you need or want in retirement, because it's not just about the income that you need, it's about the income that you may want to have, to not have a vast adjustment in your quality of life in your retirement career. So using income generating tools in the investment world, focusing on interest and dividends, will accomplish, essentially both of those.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the other hazards that you see when people are planning for retirement in your boots on the ground, real world experience?
The other hazards, inflation obviously is one. In our practice here, what Lindsay and I see most often is I think people don't really take the time to think about what retirement looks like. They're busy, right? They're busy working with their career and taking care of their family, and they don't really take enough time to really sit down and think about their goals and what they want to accomplish while they're retired. Another hazard I can see is that, people say I had a sweet lady in my office not too long ago who came in and she made a comment that kind of stuck with me. She said the 70 is the new 50, right? People are living longer. I think that people, vastly underestimate the length of time that they're going to be retired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it allows inflation more time to do more damage.
Exactly.
But I love what you had to say about having your retirement goals, because, if people retire just to get away from a job they don't like anymore and they're moving away from something that's bad, oftentimes they have an unfulfilling retirement. But if people know what retirement means for them in advance and they're moving towards something that's pleasurable, those are the people that, as I'm sure you see it too, that usually have the most fulfilled retirement.
Yeah.
So we can take a quick commercial break. We'll be back in just a minute. You stay with us. We'll be right back here on The Income Generation. Welcome back to The Income Generation. I'm David Scranton. I'm here with Jeff Small and Nathan Cox. So Nathan, we just come off a week where we had the first presidential debate. And, are you finding that a lot of people right now are frozen because they're concerned about the outcome of the elections and how it's going to affect their money?
We're starting to see a little bit of that. People seem to be frozen by, some of it's frozen by fear, honestly. It seems like people really just don't know which direction to turn. And watching the debate this week, it seemed to me look more like a fight ticket than a political debate. But in general, I think that people just really, they don't know what the outcome is going to be. It seems like it's going to be pretty close either way. And, regardless of how, if you want the election to go one way or the other, what it boils down to is I just don't think people know which direction to go. I think they need some guidance.
And what do you tell them when they're concerned about the elections? I mean, this is one of the most divisive, perhaps the most divisive we've seen during our time. But yet, most of the time, the election doesn't change a ton. And people just lost precious opportunity costs, lost interest, lost gains, because they're sitting on their hands, nervous about the election. But this particular time, what are you telling them? Are you telling them to play conservative because of it, or are you discounting the election outcome as something that, for the most part, shouldn't really affect their long-term strategy?
Well, I think if you go back and look at history, I believe that if you look at market trends historically, because of the impacts or the results of presidential elections, I agree with you. I don't really think that it has that much effect on it. It may affect it for a short period of time. I think there's a lot of other different factors that go into that. So I tell my clients, I said, sometimes that obviously not making a decision is making a decision. So if with investments that you need for income, obviously you need to be more conservative and invest those for income. Investments that you can keep in growth and capital appreciation, then you may see some buying opportunities. So you may want to or need to have some money on the sideline to be able to take advantage of those opportunities.
Sure. Good. They're all good points, Nathan. Jeff?
Well, I think, what drives the economy is not politics, it's policy. And unfortunately, there was very little substance during the debate about what policies are going to drive the economy and how do we lift up people now. Because the headlines, Nathan, are, Disney's laying off 28,000 people. The airlines are laying off 30,000. There's a big 10% cut on all payroll for most of the S&P 500 companies. They're laying off people. So we really need to get some substance. So that's really what's scaring people. It's not so much the divisiveness as much as it is the uncertainty in the policies. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. I totally agree. And watching the debate, like you said, there wasn't much substance there. I know there were some questions that seemed like that were asked that just weren't answered. So I think that's fueling that. Like I said, of course, markets obviously don't like uncertainty. Of course, you can't really tell that as of today. I mean, it looks like we had some fairly good economic numbers that have come out this week, but or at least better. But overall, from an economic standpoint, I think that the virus is definitely taking a toll, and it's going to continue for a while.
It is, but let's do a debate filler since those two couldn't get their act together. So had they asked me what my policy would have been on China, I would have said, well, my policy on China, if I'm President Trump, is made in America, and Joe Biden's policy is made in China. The decision is easy on that basis, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I agree with that.
Dave, what do you think about that? That's pretty harsh.
But Jeff, we don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about your son. Let's talk about your son and his issues, okay? That's more important than letting the American people know what our policies are going to be moving forward as President of the United States. Well, so, Nathan, we've got 1 minute left. Best advice right now for our income generation viewers, our income generation listeners.
Think about, like I said before, think about what retirement looks like. Look for buying opportunities. Best advice is for the money that you need or want for income in your retirement career, invest it appropriately. Get some advice from a good qualified professional to do that.
So satisfy your income needs first, of course, as we do day in and day out. You, myself, Jeff, with the Retirement Income Store. And then the rest of it, once that's satisfied, if we want to get some growth, then we can. But cover the income first. I love it.
cover the
Nathan,
income
thanks
first.
so much for being with us today on the show. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you stay with us. We have more coming up right here on the Income Generation. We'll be right back.